Peter, welcome to People in Legal.
Thank you very much for having me. You grabbed me right off the corner.
I did. The best part about that is we saw you again this morning. We actually met you. We met you in the hotel this morning. We're actually in the lift. We were actually in the lobby of the hotel, and we got a ride together. And we had this interesting conversation around AI and ILTA and those sorts of things as well. So, do you want to give an introduction to our audience about who you are and
Yeah, happy to. Real quickly, my career is kind of all over the map. I started my career as a United States naval officer, did 8 years active duty. I went back to school. I got my master's of business. Then I did a 20-year consulting career working for firms like Accenture, PwC, Alvarez & Marsal, deep expertise in data and analytics and AI. Toward the end of that 20 years, I guess I had the midlife crisis. Most people go out and buy the sports car. I decided I'm going to go to law school full time.
Yep.
So I did that, and then starting in 2016, I've been at major US-based law firms.
Wow.
First as head of data strategy, AI and analytics, and then most recently as chief innovation and AI officer.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I mean, what are you seeing interesting in the marketplace now? What are you seeing that's of interest out there at ILTA?
Yeah, I mean, looking back 2 years ago at ILTA, I had met up with a company called Case Text, and they were talking about a new kind of search. They called it neural network-based search. And I thought that was interesting, but a month later they called me and said, we've completely pivoted the company.
Yep.
What we showed you was cool, but now we've got this thing using a large language model.
Wow.
So I was one of the first people to see what they called co-counsel, the first AI legal assistant, back in September of 2022.
That's amazing.
And was absolutely blown away. I saw some demos. I championed it to our executive leadership team.
Yep.
We ended up being one of the first law firms in the world to buy it.
Wow.
And I implemented that tool at, again, an AmLaw 25 firm. And then about a year ago, I was asked to do it again for another firm. So for me, I've seen it from early iterations. I'm on their advisory board. I've given them use cases, feedback from our attorneys on how to use this. And what I find so compelling right now is not only are we seeing efficiency gains by using these types of tools, in some cases we're taking away, I call it the drudgery of being a young attorney, right? Having to look at 10,000 contracts until your eyes are crossed, right? We're able to use these AI tools to kind of allow our attorneys to do more value add type services that our clients want and expect from us than the drudgery work. The other aspect of it that I find really compelling too is some of the use cases, I would argue, are not only efficiency gains, but I think true competitive advantage for our clients. And we can talk about that. I'll give you an example as we continue.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I'd love to actually hear about some of the things, some of the real, I guess, more detailed use cases that firms are actually using it for. Like, where are they getting quick wins?
Quick wins. So I think AI-assisted legal research is the quickest of all wins, right? To be able just to use a natural language to describe what you're looking for, and then find those cases and let the large language model also write you a sentence or two saying why we believe this case is so relevant, I think is really important. Another really easy use case that has had more value than I would have expected is the ability to summarize.
Yes.
Take a 100-page document and ask the large language model to basically condense it into 5 pages, but hit all the salient points. Some of my litigators have told me it's when I've got a 300-page deposition that I have to read, sometimes running it through and getting that summary first allows me to kind of get my mind around what I'm about to anticipate and read, and I'm more focused and I pick up more of the nuances. The other example I'll share with you, and I kind of teased you with, was instructing the large language model, or co-counsel, to look for inconsistent statements between 2 documents. So an example we did, we uploaded some text from an expert that they had written, and then their deposition statement, and we instructed co-counsel to read both and find inconsistencies between the 2.
Right.
So simply speaking, right, in the text, the expert may have said, this is always red.
Yep.
But in his deposition 3 weeks ago, he said, you know, it could be red, it could be blue, it could be yellow, it could be green. But being able to point those out and give those to our attorneys as they're doing cross-examination, I think that really tilts the scales of justice perhaps in our favor for our client.
So I guess, who's got the best AI tool? I guess if for a law firm that's really to be able to compete, they've got to have great AI.
So I don't think, it's interesting you say that. I think we're still at this early stage where I see it as an inflection point, right?
Yep.
I see it as there are going to be law firms that are going to be early adopters, that are going to embrace this technology, build these use cases. I would almost say build a culture or a fluency around these tools.
Yep.
And use them for not only efficiency but competitive advantage. I do think in the very near future, it would almost be professional malpractice if your law firm wasn't using these to advance your client's position.
Amazing.
I mean, that's a far-reaching statement, but I
Yeah.
do think what I'm seeing right now would lead me to believe that.
Yeah. And what's the pushback? I mean, I guess taking, I mean, it's quite, some people are sort of quite new as a big change. What are the pushbacks in law firms in putting AI in place?
I think there's a couple, right? I think we all got a scare last May. I don't know if this made it to Australia. It was the Mata case, right? Real quickly, the Mata case, a gentleman was injured on an international airliner. He got local counsel in New York State. They filed in federal courts. The two attorneys representing Mr. Mata presented a brief. The opposing counsel said, this brief is really well written, but the only challenge is all 18 of these cases, we can't find them. They were all hallucinations made up.
My goodness.
So that really scared everybody, was the responsibility, using it in a responsible, ethical way, I think scared law firms. So I think you've got to have governance in place. I think you need a leader kind of working with the management team, working with the partners and the practice leaders to do this in a responsible, ethical way.
Yep.
And I think the other part is measured. Measuring the efficiency gains, measuring where are we getting value, how are we going to do this into our pricing, how are we going to work with clients, how are we going to communicate transparently with our clients how we're using this. I think all of that has to be thought through.
That's interesting, because actually as a user of legal services, I mean, how would that affect my pricing? I mean, should I expect better pricing? How would you actually?
I love this
that?
question, and it's kind of a funny story. So we started really testing in earnest last year, August timeframe. I want to say September or October, we start getting questionnaires from clients.
Yeah.
And they all kind of followed the same fact pattern. Question one, we're hearing a lot of talk about legal and generative AI. Would you like to share with us what you're doing? Question two, are you seeing efficiency gains as a result of using AI? Now, question three is coming, right?
I do.
When will you be passing on cost savings to us as a result of these efficiency gains, right? And we had to go back and say very politely is we're really early days of testing.
Yeah.
And our instruction to our attorneys is trust but verify.
Yeah.
So even if there are efficiency gains, more often than not, they're negated because I'm asking my attorneys to go back to the traditional Westlaw or perhaps Lexis to double and triple check at these early stages.
Well, I guess what it means is you've got to, based on what you've said so far, and what I've read, what it means is it's a better overall service that the client's getting, I guess. Even if it is the same bill, that's a better overall service.
Yeah, I think there are opportunities. Due diligence is a great example. Being able to use these AI tools, what would have taken an army of first and second and third year associates to eyeball 10,000 contracts can now be automated, and now you're letting the attorneys do the second pass of review. So not only are we not having to sample, we can do everything right now, but it's a higher level of review. And then using these tools, whether it's for drafting or finding these inconsistent statements or finding other cases that have been cited along with the case that you cited for you to do reference, I think you're getting a better legal product or deliverable for your clients as well. But it takes time, right? There is this learning curve, not only understanding kind of the capabilities, the risk and limitations of the tools today, but understanding prompt engineering in order to get the information you need out of it. Building these use cases, and they didn't come with instruction manuals. So a lot of it is hypothesis and use cases and working with the attorneys specifically for their practice to find wins. And then once we have those, how do we socialize those across the firm so it becomes kind of a fabric of our DNA going forward?
Amazing. And I'm blown away because actually you were at the early days of AI in law firms, and so I'm thinking to myself, you must be one of the rare people in the marketplace who've got this knowledge and how law firms can actually take this and implement and put this in place in the business cases, etc.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my introductory statement. So I guess I'm kind of a unicorn in the sense that I have a law degree, I have an advanced business degree, 20 years of business consulting. I'm a data scientist and working in this field. So I love it. I'm excited to go to work every day and work with the attorneys.
Brilliant. And what interesting thing have you seen at ILTA this year?
ILTA, so again, I think this is, another of these inflection points. We're seeing kind of the next generation of large language models, whether it be from Google or OpenAI or Llama or Anthropic. And we're seeing with these larger context windows, the ability to keep more information, I'll use the word salient, within the large language model, which means we're able to do more complex use cases and comparisons. And that's really exciting to me. So I'm seeing the second iteration of co-counsel, for example, 3x speed increase, the ability to bring in more data, more legal reasoning. So again, I was using this analogy the other day. I still think we're kind of in the flip phone phase, right, of this journey. We haven't seen the BlackBerry yet. We haven't seen the iPhone. I think we're seeing that. The other part, which I really find interesting too, is the first generation of these tools were very kind of siloed or fragmented. Now we're seeing integrations with document management systems and SharePoint and all the ecosystem of legal systems working together in tandem. Before it was attorneys had to go to one system, pull out documents, upload them into these. It's all seamless now. So
Amazing.
I'm really impressed, and hopefully that will help with adoption going forward.
Awesome. And bit of a fun question. You've been in the Navy, you traveled around the world, that sort of stuff. Favorite city in Australia?
Favorite city. So my story is we did a 6-month deployment.
Yeah.
This is back in the early 90s. And I was the operations officer, so I got to plan the trip home. So I planned it. So we left the Gulf. We went to Singapore. And then from Singapore, we went to Perth. And we had a couple days in Perth. And then it was a 4-day journey around the bottom of Australia to Sydney.
Yeah.
And then from Sydney, we went to Fiji, Fiji to Hawaii, Hawaii back home to San Diego.
Nice.
I will tell you, having lived in San Diego, I think Perth is the closest twin city. Absolutely loved it as a beach town and community. People couldn't have been kinder.
Yeah.
Sydney, I'm from Chicago originally. I kind of felt at home at Sydney too. Big city. It was wonderful. And it was a funny story was they told us in the Navy, when you go out, you want to wear your uniform. It's like, come on, I've been wearing my uniform for 6 months on the ship. That's the last thing I want to do. I told you, it worked like a charm. I mean, people were buying us beers and taking care of us. It was really, really a great opportunity to be there. Absolutely, loved it. So between Perth and Sydney, I'm split 50-50.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you so much for your time today.
David, my pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.